And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Alix Steel. We're counting you down to the closing bell, and here to help take us beyond the bell. It's a global simulcast. We're joined right now by Scarlet, the Dax Fu, here in the television studio. Tim, the bicycle Stenovec, and unfortunately, Carol Massar, I think, just got 25 years in prison. But pleased to say, we're going to break down all of the action for you here on the final trading day of the quarter.
I'm done.
Innocent until proven guilty for Carol.
Not even close. Listen, big day, right? Interesting story in terms of SBF. I do think we definitely closed the chapter, right, on one era of, I kind of feel like the crypto story, but more to come. But yeah, pretty big sentence. A lot of people, it was interesting to hear some of the experts weigh in and say they thought it was kind of too hefty.
Yeah, we did an hour-long special on this from 12 to 1 today for Bloomberg Crypto on Bloomberg TV. And we kind of had not anyone really told us that the sentence was just right. We had a couple people weigh in and say that it was too lenient, and a couple people weigh in and say we thought it was too much of a sentence, too long of a sentence. What I want to know is where this $11 billion is going to come from, because that's part of the sentence as well. So it's 25 years, but also he owes $11 billion.
Yeah, exactly. Is he going to have to cash out of something? Or are his parents going to have to pony up the money for it?
Who can pony up $11 billion?
Well, what happened to the money that he allegedly took? Where does that all go? This story is not going to end anytime soon. We'll find out what happens on Netflix in about 5 years.
More chapters to come, right?
Yeah, I have no idea. That was my question, is like, where do you get the money kind of where does that go? But then moving on here from that, you wind up having a really amazing first quarter. And I say amazing because it doesn't feel like investors were positioned for the quarter that we actually saw, with record high after record high. What about 22 record highs for the S&P?
Yeah, this is going to go down really in the record books. Of course, this is not, of course, the best quarter ever. But I think when you consider just how much it defied expectations, definitely something that we'll be talking about for years to come. On a daily basis, not a whole lot of action here. The Dow Jones Industrial Average higher on the day, but only by about 0.1%. However, it is sitting on a gain of 2% for the month of March, 6% for the first quarter. The S&P 500 higher by 0.1% here on the day, 3% on the month, 10% on the quarter. The Nasdaq lower on the day by about 0.1%, but it is going to finish the month of March with a 2% gain, and the first quarter of 2024 up 9%. And the Russell 2000 also getting in on the action here. Modest gains here on the day of about 0.5%, but you can add 3 percentage points here on a monthly basis, 5 percentage points higher on the quarter.
Yeah, definitely a bullish quarter, no doubt about it, when it comes to the equity universe. Having said that, guys, top performing name in the S&P 500 in the first quarter of 2024, Super Microcomputer up about 255%. Bottom of the pack, we're talking about Tesla, which is down more than 29% here so far in this first quarter. So, yeah.
Let's take a look at how things shaped up on the final trading day of this first quarter. In terms of the best performing sectors, a lot of green. First of all, you only have 3 sectors in the red, and the worst performing communication services only fell 0.3%. But energy, utilities, and REITs are the 3 best performers. And it's worth noting that utilities and REITs are some of the worst performers so far this year. So a little bit of a reversal there. Communication services, consumer discretionary, and tech, which of course houses the Magnificent Seven, are the laggards on the day.
All right, guys, let's get to some of the individual gainers, if I may, on this Thursday. Hey, Estee Lauder, I think you guys were talking about it earlier on TV, finishing just off its highs of the session, so up more than 6%. It is the #1 gainer in the S&P 500 today. B of A upgrading the stock to buy from neutral, saying that the company's earnings have now bottomed. This, of course, remember, in early February, the company unveiled a surprise restructuring. They cut workers. They said they're going to focus more on kind of growth initiatives, if you will. B of A writing that both company-specific and macro factors were responsible for driving negative revisions over the past 2 years, and they say they have measures in place to support a profit recovery, sharpen brand and product efficiency and proposition. So very optimistic, B of A. They lifted their 2026 EPS estimate and moved the price target on Estee Lauder to $170 from $160 a share. Stock closing at $154 and change. Another name that was among the top gainers in the Nasdaq 100, Analog Devices. That one finishing the day up about 2.3%. Here. And this is interesting. That's despite a cautious call out from UBS on the chip group. They did note, though, on the positive, semis have quality fundamentals, historically the best growth rate, and no sign of overinvestment. And so UBS analysts favoring cheaper names such as SEC and also ADI, so Analog Devices on that list. Also, they mentioned TSMC, TI, and Infineon among those that they also like. And just quickly want to mention United Parks and Recreation. That one finishing the day with about a gain of about 5.5%. the company's holders approving a $500 million buyback, amending their agreement with Hillpath Capital. Basically, the company's not going to buy back shares if Hillpath stock ownership in United Parks exceeds 50%. So some business stuff there. But anyway, talking about a buyback and setting that stock higher in today's session.
All right, well, let's talk about some of the decliners. I do want to start with Apple dragging the S&P 500 today. A couple bits of Apple news that did send shares lower, or perhaps investors just chewed on as they traded. Mark Gurman reporting that Apple's going to be coming out with a new iPad very soon. It has been about 18 months since the last updates, so a new iPad would mark the end to the longest stretch without new models in the history of the iPad, which was first introduced all the way back in 2010, and that was by Steve Jobs. Shares finishing down by 1.1%. Apple was also cut from buy to hold over at DZ Bank early this morning. Shares of Palantir.
Are you getting one of
falling.
these new iPads, Tim?
No. iPads aren't the thing that people upgrade that frequently, right? Like, we have an old iPad, and it totally does the trick.
Yeah, because it's just your kids watching it. Same for me. So,
it has a big,
they don't know the difference.
Alix, it has a big, foam case around it because it just gets dropped all the time. So,
yeah. I feel you. I get that.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
So no new iPad yet. It's very durable, by the way. Palantir shares falling today by more than 6%. This after Moness downgraded the company from sell to neutral. Analyst Brian White writes that the stock has, quote, an egregiously rich valuation following gains from AI-related optimism. And AMC Entertainment is back in the news. Shares falling today by double digits. This after the company said that it entered into an equity distribution agreement, essentially saying it can sell shares up to $250 million. This would be Class A common stock. Shares falling by 14.3%. After all, it is a dilutive event. And finally, honorable mention, Reddit. Shares falling in their worst day since the company went public last week, falling more than 14%. We did get a regulatory filing after the market closed yesterday that showed some insider selling. Those people include Steve Huffman, the company's COO Jennifer Wong, who does own more than 4% of the company, and also the company's CFO as well.
All right, let's take a look at the bond market here. You did have the bond market close around 2 p.m., and it was a sell-off in the front end, really yields up by about 5 basis points, which we got that pretty strong fourth quarter GDP revision for the fourth quarter. But overall, it was quite a quarter for bonds. The 2-year yield moved 37 basis points. That was the biggest quarterly rise since June of 2023. And not to belabor the point here, but the German 2-year yield rose 44 basis points. I'm just saying that all of this is showing that as you see the push out of central bankers, not yet for a cut, those front ends are really moving.
Yeah, and it should be pointed out, and I'm glad you bring that up because we focus so much on the big gains that we've seen in equities, and you kind of forget there was a lot of activity, believe it or not, in that space. You had a lot of activity with the dollar moving higher, about 3% on the quarter here, and then, of course, there was Bitcoin. That was, what, up 60-something percent or something.
Yeah.
So not a bad quarter all around cross-asset-wise, and it was a broadening of the rally too, guys. I mean, we talk so much about AI, but look at the gainers just in March. I mean, the top 10 gainers, they weren't AI and tech stocks. I mean, 7 of the 10 biggest gainers in the month of March were non-tech companies.
I thought you were going to, is that a setup for me?
No, I never set you up.
Okay. Yeah, no, you set me up all the time.
I set you up to trip, like Lucy with the football.
I did want to get to a story. Thank you very much. All right. So I want to get to a story that is about psychedelic drugs, right? Investors have been pouring money for years, psychedelic drugs and companies that are involved in this space. Now, investors have been pouring money into them for kind of a few years, a while, hoping that it's going to kind of take off, and it hasn't really paid off. But if you check it out, once again, you're seeing investors piling in this year. Mind Medicine or MindMed shares have more than doubled this year. GH Research's stock surged by about 85%. And then you've got Atai Life Sciences. NV has climbed more than 25%. So we're seeing once again, and there's some regulatory movement that maybe supports it.
That's the thing. It's far from guaranteed that the FDA will approve some of these treatments that these companies offer, Scarlet. So investors once again betting on regulators actually making certain moves, and we see that how that's worked out for the pot stocks not so well over the last few years.
Yeah, it's kind of a lottery ticket, isn't it? I mean, anytime you were betting on a biotech or any kind of drug maker, or in this case, betting on FDA approval, unless you've got inside information.
All right,
But it's interesting you bring up the marijuana stocks, Tim, because wasn't part of the issue with those why they underperform was that there are a lot of people who use this stuff that they don't really necessarily want the legal version of it. You know, there's an added cost that comes with that because of the regulation. And, you know, I hate to say it, but if you already got a supplier, then, you know, why are you going to go to those biotechs that Carol was listing?
Because you know it doesn't have fentanyl in it, maybe?
It's different from psychedelics are a little
raise a good point, Alex. Look, how many years have we heard that, federal reclassification is just around the corner, right?
Yeah.
Or like a,
Yeah.
nationwide legalization.
Nationwide legalization. It'll come one day.
Yeah, we keep hearing that.
Yeah.
I don't need legalization. I just need to walk the street,
Without getting hit in the face by the smell.
It's all free for
Don't get me
everybody.
started.
I apologize, Carol. I just need to unwind before the show. So.
Don't walk behind Romaine on the way home.
Yeah,
I'll
don't go to
start
his
walking by
office,
her
man.
desk.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Have a great holiday weekend. That's a wrap. Our cross-platform coverage on this Thursday. Radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals. We do it all right here on Beyond the Bell. We'll see you on Monday.